Hello everyone and welcome back to Navis Nobilite. Today I'm going to be performing the very first lore video focusing around the Lunar class cruiser. Everyone grab something to eat or drink, this is going to be a slightly longer video than normal. The Lunar class cruiser is regularly regarded as the backbone of the Imperial Navy, finding a place in every Imperial fleet across the galaxy. Segmentum Obscurus alone boasts 600 of the vessels in service, with an unknown number in mothball fleets or inactivated for maintenance. The origin of this vessel, like most pieces of ancient technology, are lost to the sands of time. But some information has been teased from the past to give us a window into when and why it was constructed. After the Horus Heresy, fleet tactics began to shift dramatically, moving away from carrier-based strike groups and towards a heavier, torpedo-armed gunship model. This moved the Adeptus Mechanicus to adopt an alternate design to replace the aging and less trusted Murder-class cruiser. While it is not exactly known what inspired the design as a whole, it is very likely it was based upon the Emperor battleship, a design that has existed since the Dark Age of technology. The design ultimately was extremely popular and almost immediately demonstrated great success in battle. So much so that every sector and every segmentum adopted the lunar cruiser as its ship of the line cruiser class, consigning its predecessor to the scrapyard or mothball fleets. The reasons for this are varied, but despite having a rather underwhelming firepower compared to similar classes of cruiser, it makes for that in utility and ease of construction. These cruisers are so easy to construct that they can be built just about anywhere. The most notable being the Lord Deros, which had its raw materials mined out of the ground by primitive tribal inhabitants of the planet Unla, and the vessel itself constructed in orbit. Given that this massive vessel, almost 5 kilometers long, was constructed in just 11 years with limited industrial support, one should consider how little time it would take if it were to be constructed at a proper shipyard with full Forge World support. The Lunar-class cruiser is armed adequately for a vessel of its size and tonnage, boasting an armament of 4 macro cannons and 2 Starship-grade lances on each broadside. Its heavily armored prow contains 6 torpedo tubes, but can be modified to carry a Nova cannon instead, changing the tactical use of the vessel from close-range brawler to long-range fire support if needed. This modification, while costly and time-consuming, is still the easiest way for an admiral to bring a Nova cannon to the battle on short notice. Sitting at 5 kilometers in length and nearly a kilometer tall, this vessel sports a crew complement of between 50 and 100,000 crew depending on the technological sophistication of the ship and where it was built. Most of this crew is made up of indentured and slave labor used for grunt work on the ship, replacing long-lost and more complex automated systems that have been lost to the sands of time. You can find hundreds or even thousands of ratings simply turning flywheels, loading ordnance, or moving supplies. This is the normal for Imperial Navy vessels and only grows in number as the ships themselves get larger in size and complexity. When used in battle, the Lunar-class cruiser is regularly paired into squadrons of ships, usually with another Lunar, or its sister ship, the Gothic. Doing so provides much-needed concentration of firepower from its broadside armament, along with making its potent torpedo salvo that much more dangerous to a potential target. This tactic of squadroning lunar cruisers together has regularly demonstrated that the whole is greater than the sum of its parts, as it was Omega Squadron that eventually destroyed the terrifying Planet Killer, Abaddon's flagship, during its 12th Black Crusade. It is common for admirals to use these squadron formations as powerful wedges to break up enemy formations while causing enormous damage to anything that gets too close. Ultimately, alone, a lunar vessel can be regularly disregarded by an enemy admiral, but more than one working in tandem with one another is something the enemy simply cannot ignore. Another common tactic is to pair a lunar that has been equipped with a Nova cannon up with a Dominator or a Mars, providing these vessels much-needed close-range fire support and doubling up on the powerful benefits of the devastating but unreliable weapon. Another unexpected boon of the Lunar-class cruiser is that its hull regularly is used to create other vessels when they have suffered catastrophic damage. Salvaged or heavily crippled vessels will find themselves gutted and repurposed into other classes, such as the Dictator class, or the significantly more powerful Armageddon class battlecruiser. The Lunar is so common across the Imperium of Man that it's almost innocuous. Between convoy protection duty, planetary defense, and active campaigns, they are simply seen everywhere in some manner. Rogue traders of particular renown and wealth have been known to purchase or even be gifted lunar cruisers for their services to the Emperor. Even the Adeptus Mechanicus operate a pattern of lunar cruiser, though it is heavily modified and upgraded to their exacting standards. Their common nature also sees salvaged or captured vessels in the hands of pirates, renegades, or even in the hands of the trader fleets. Trying to find examples of heroic moments for these vessels isn't difficult, as they have taken part in most, if not all, of major naval conflicts across the galaxy since their creation, though they all seem to have a common theme. If a lunar is alone, it rarely comes out on top. The Hammer of Thrace was one such vessel that was called from convoy duty to pursue the Aro, a custodian-class carrier of the town. Predictably, the moment that the carrier turned to fight, the Hammer of Thrace was destroyed, being badly outgunned by the huge carrier vessel. Another such case is the story of the Goliath, which pursued a crippled Styx-heavy cruiser with an escort of Cobra destroyers. Despite the numbers and readiness advantage, the Goliath was crippled and its escorts nearly destroyed by the traitor vessel. On the other hand, the aforementioned Omega Squadron achieved one of the greatest heights of glory one could ask for, namely the destruction of the planet killer itself with repeated bombardments of torpedoes. Though at its height, Omega Squadron was made up of 4 lunar-class cruisers under an expert command crew. Miraculously, the Thetis managed to completely annihilate an Eldar Corsair raid on the world of Bessarin, though it would later be ambushed and destroyed by Necron vessels at the beginning of the Orphean War. Despite its loss, the ability to destroy an Eldar raid by itself on such a poorly optimized platform could be considered heroic by any standard. Overall, the Lunar is the backbone of the Imperial Navy. Every fleet has some, and they never have enough of them. Despite being so easy to build, they are always in high demand for their utility and durability. Like any starship, they require a skilled hand to be used effectively in any battle, and will always be better off when another vessel is supporting them, be it escorting destroyers or from another friendly cruiser. It is clear that the original design of these vessels required them to function in squadrons of at least 2, but due to constant warfare across the galaxy in the 41st millennium, the Imperial Navy is stretched thin, and these vessels regularly find themselves in battles they were never designed to fight. However, like a phoenix, even a destroyed lunar can live again, refitted to any number of other classes of vessel, even more powerful than the original lunar design that it was before. I'm going to take a moment here to pierce the fourth wall and talk a little about the lunar outside of the lore. The lunar vessel, the ship, was actually the very first ship made for Battlefleet Gothic by Andy Chambers. It was the foundational ship that all of the balance of all of the game was originally based on. When Games Workshop finally managed to figure out in their lore exactly what a lunar was, they maintained a consistent lore footing for the vessel, never making it too powerful and never making it too weak. Though there are some unusual cases where things are referenced as a lunar battleship when they very clearly are not the lunar that we know and love. But ultimately, over all of the years of the lore that revolves around Battlefleet Gothic and Games Workshop, it is one of the rarest things that the lore has ever represented. Something that is well represented in both the rules and the lore. So let that be a moment of awe, given that Games Workshop is not consistent about anything when it comes to their lore, and this one humble ship has maintained its consistent nature for all that time. How have your lunars held up into the lore? How have they encountered, how have they fared? Have they encountered great successes or catastrophic failures? What have they done in your battles? Why don't you post them down in the comments below so we can talk about this incredible, this foundational cruiser that we can all, at the very least, respect for its use and purpose in forming the game that we all know and love. Thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you all again in the next video.